my perception of race is still very similar to what it was before I became a Baha'i. But I think that what the Baha'i faith has given me is a new context for understanding. I think the most valuable tool that we have to combat racism as a community of faith is, one, our scripture, and two, our institutions. You know, Shoghi Effendi talks about this, and Shoghi Effendi is one that we refer to as the guardian of the Baha'i faith, and he also has a very distinct role as has had the very distinct role of establishing the institutional manifestations of the Baha'i faith across the planet. Shoghi Effendi says that if we don't address this particular issue, that we will incur the wrath and chastisement of God is significant, because it tells us it is the will of God that we address these things, that it is mandatory for our spirits and hearts to engage in this work. It's not optional. Framing the eradication of racism as a divine mandate is a way to move the addressing of this particular social and spiritual ill, no matter what color you are. The requirement is that you embrace the teachings, that you're saying that I believe in the teachings of the Baha'i faith. I believe that the oneness of humanity is a priority, and that the eradication of racial prejudice is one of those things at the top of the list of the manifestation of God for this day and age. The other, I think, most significant thing is the fact that the institutions are required to be known by their capacity to nurture, encourage, and safeguard every minority population in their jurisdiction. And so what that tells me is that righteous and just institutions are institutions that protect black people. Abdu'l-Baha is referred to as the center of the covenant of the Baha'i faith and the perfect exemplar or example of what it means to be a Baha'i. His spirit is to really infuse the institutions. When we think about this whole notion of the covenant and how we're connected to Abdu'l-Baha and Shoghi Effendi and the other governing bodies of the Baha'i faith, you know, that's the spirit that should be infused and permeating the way we administer in the faith. I remember hearing stories about Abdu'l-Baha when I first became a Baha'i. I love to read the stories about him, particularly the stories about him and interactions that he had with black people across the world. There are a number of poor kids from the Bowery in New York City that come to another party, and there is one African-American young man in the group, and he is the first person that Abdu'l-Baha goes up to speak to. There's another incident in a hotel in Paris where there had been a black man that had been coming to see Abdu'l-Baha, and when one day he did not show up, Abdu'l-Baha found out that essentially that the hotel had told him he couldn't come. And Abdu'l-Baha summons the man to come back to the hotel and essentially chastises the people for not allowing him to be there. What that tells me is that to be a Baha'i means that you have to orient yourself in a very, very radical and different way to people that sit on the margins of society. Is that you have to call people that have been pushed out of certain places because of the color of their skin, that you have to call them to the center of the room and show unequivocally that you love them. That's what Abdu'l-Baha's example tells me. That it's not optional, that it is required. Traveling